TikTok family, how's everyone doing? I hope everyone had an amazing Eid. I took a good week off just to spend with my family and really self-reflect. And I've gone through my DMs since I've been back. And I wanted to do like a little mass message to all my people who are looking for someone to marry and to settle down. First thing I want to say is that if you're in your sort of early to mid 20s, I totally 110% understand and empathize that feeling of urgency of finding someone to marry. I was in the same position and I was quite young, and I got married quite quickly, and we remained together for about 9 years. And I learned the world of lessons rushing into that marriage. And there's a few points I've come to realize myself on where that might have gone wrong. Now, I'm not saying that's the same for everyone, but I'm just sharing a few things with you about why not to rush the process. So nowadays, when you're in your early 20s, you are still trying to figure out life. And I know in the Muslim community, everyone's like, oh, it's really good to get married really young. It's very good. But back when the Quran Sharif was being written, and back in the day of our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were 14, 15-year-olds who were leaders of armies. They reached their peak maturity at an age that we can't even imagine. Like, we think our kids nowadays are mature. But when the Quran was written, they were way maturer than us. Their understanding on the responsibility of life, the family structures, the meaning of what they're supposed to be doing with their lives, that whole thing is a completely different perspective to what we have now. So when you are in your early 20s, and the way that the West has structured it is that that's when you literally just get out of uni. And if you don't go to uni, that's when you just first start figuring out what you want to do on this life and on this planet. And one of the biggest lessons I feel like I learned is that when you're not in your purpose, you're not running life in your purpose, in your meaning, you tend to want to attach that meaning to someone else. Where it's very natural to want to be in a partnership with someone, it can be for the wrong reasons if you're not appropriately standing on your own two mental and emotional feet. Learning to emotionally regulate yourself, learning what your triggers are and what they aren't, understanding what direction you want to take it in life, because being in your purpose is going to attract like for like energy. And take it from a sister who was not in her purpose before. I was just consumed by the desire of being someone's wife. The last person I was going to marry, I got so obsessed with the thought of marrying him that I was bending myself into all sorts of shapes. Even if it didn't suit me, even if it felt wrong. I was like, no, I just really want to be with him. And, this is the guy that's it for me now. And when you get into that kind of Bollywood mind state, your decision making is 100% obscured. Like, you are not able to make sound and calm decisions because the West has delayed our maturity. And on top of that, we've got Islamic traditions being shoved on our head. Like, okay, well, get married young and it's good for you. But what young person do you know that even has the facility to put a roof over their own head, let alone somebody else? We've seen the consequences, and there's so many women in my comments alone that have explained the consequences of what it is to live with your in-laws. And when you marry young, that's pretty much the only option you have, unless you're very lucky and very well off. And I lived with my in-laws for 4 years. And I will do another video on that because I know there's loads of people want to ask about it. But it is not an easy process. And you are essentially putting your partner in a very weird position. They're putting themselves in a weird position between their wife and their mother. And when you are young, and I think from my perspective, young is below 30. you don't know how to handle those kind of intricate dynamics. When you're young, you just feel like you're being constantly bullied in life. You don't know how to intricately communicate. You know, like I had a client, for example. I had a few clients say the same thing actually in this regard. That it was Valentine's Day, and their husband bought the mother and her some flowers. So she's okay, thank you, great. She comes downstairs after putting her flowers away in the bedroom, and the mum's like, "Oh look, I got flowers too. Menu bhi phool mile hain. It's not just you." And unfortunately, we have a lot of these kind of, you know, mother-in-laws floating about. And the young person, the young version of me would have been like, why is she doing this? What's her problem? I'm the wife, she's the mum. I don't understand why I'm in this weird kind of competition with you. Your son loves me, let him love me. You know, why are you trying to put crap in my head and his head and create issues? And I would have just gone into one. But the older version of me, the more purposeful version of me, the one that has taken her time to understand what she's about in here and in here, I would approach that situation totally different now. Like if I had a mother-in-law do that to me, I'd be like, that is absolutely wonderful. ये तो बहुत अच्छी बात है कि शादी के बाद फिर भी आपका बेटा आपके लिए फूल लेके आता है. I would genuinely, I'd be like, that is so brilliant. For the ones that don't understand Urdu, I would say to the mother, it's absolutely wonderful that you've raised your son in a way that he still buys you flowers on Valentine's Day after having a wife. Like, that's amazing. And I'm so happy for you that you have that. And then I would bring some of my flowers down and I'd give it to her. I'd give her my flowers. I'd be like, your bouquet is looking too small for being a mother. Mera bhi saath baandh ke rakh de. I want you to have it. And that ability to understand strategic communication, it only comes with age and experience. And I know people are like, oh, well, if you get married young, you're easily molded and blah, blah, blah. Yes, to a certain extent, that is true. But there's other parameters to be considered. You know, you can't just run in and hope for the best. And this is what I want to say to my girls who are in this panic about finding a man, especially if you're under the age of 25, 26 years old. Relax. Relax, sis. Find out who you are as a person. Get yourself some hobbies. Find out what your brain, your want and your desire, find out what they are. Find out who you are. Because trust me when I tell you, all these people that you see on Instagram that are like, oh, they've got this perfect relationship. What's the one common denominator they all had? They were all living in their individual purpose. And then they attracted like for like energy. So it wasn't any of this like, oh, before we got married, you stayed indoors all the time and never did anything. Because as you grow older, you discover different parts of yourself. And you need a partner that is mature enough to understand that. But you also need to be mature enough to understand that. So Islam putting this whole meaning like, oh, getting married is half your deen. Yes, it is if the opportunity appropriately represents itself. But if you rush into a marriage when you're not ready, or you don't have your own purpose and desire in mind, your marriage ends up becoming the whole meaning of your life. And whereas it's a big part of it and it's a big responsibility, you will end up as a shell of a woman in a house, like a maid. Because you won't know what your own brain, what your own soul is trying to communicate to you. And it's really important to invest in that personal time. So don't stop rushing, guys, and just enjoy your life and the process and meet someone in the time where you're in your best energy alignment.